your nail. Okay, kuku kan. But it's almost very thin and a bit softer lah daripada kamu punya kuku. But the characteristic is almost similar. Okay, and then for this exoskeleton, there are a few parts or a few layer. We call it like epicuticle, procuticle, epidermis, basement membrane and so on. So you can imagine that dia macam ada banyak layer lah. Macam kulit kita ada layer kan, but we didn't consider our skin as an exoskeleton. Okay, because our skin does not support kita punya the whole body. Yang support adalah kita punya what we call it tulangan. Okay, so but this exoskeleton ada banyak layer. You have to remember that lah. Kalau tak ingat layer ni pun tak apalah. Okay, and then okay, the first cuticle when they secreted is actually very soft. Dia macam sangat lembut. Kalau let's say tadi kawan kamu kata dia ada tengok dari apa pupae of ataupun kita panggil kepompongan tadi butterfly, dia kata emerge as a butterfly. But if you realize, okay, waktu dia emerge tu, the first dia keluar tu is actually very soft. Okay, sama juga kalau dia mold from katalah dari ulat jadi kepompong, yang tu tak nampak lah kan. But katalah dari small larvae to large larvae, they have to mold. So waktu dia keluar molting tu, the cuticle is very soft because it's allow them to grow enlarge. Maksudnya to enlarge lah. Katalah dari kecil kan nak jadi besar. So kalaulah exoskeleton ni very hard, dari kecil tu even pun dia keluar dia jadi kecil juga lagi, dia tak boleh mengembang. But because of this cuticle is very soft when first secreted, so it's allow them to enlarge waktu sebelum mengeras tu. So badan dia akan jadi bigger than the previous stage lah. Okay, so this process we call it sclerotization. Maksudnya bila dia from the soft part waktu the first secreted and then harden, so it become we consider it as a sclerotization. Okay, the characteristic tadi, like I said, they have three main body region, okay, head, thorax and abdomen. So this is the head, you can see this is the part of thorax and this is the abdomen. So kalau kamu boleh tengok gambar, this is the separation. So kalau kamu, let's say if you want to try to kita cabut pun kan, usually it will detach in this area, kepala, thorax and abdomen. Okay, so first one we look at the head. Okay, there are many characteristics in the head. Okay, this is the picture of grasshopper. Okay, they have compound eyes, they have mandible, which is mouthpart. They have maxilla, labrum, also mouthpart, and you can see the antenna. Okay, so this is on the head. Okay, so one pair of antenna which is rarely absent. Okay, this is the what we call it segment of the antenna. They have a socket, an escape, pedicel, and flagellum. Okay, this is the standard what we call it standard characteristic. But the scape can be different in morphology. The flagellum also can be different in morphology, but you have to understand that they have a socket, an escape, pedicel, and flagellum. Okay, so this is the example. Okay, here is the variation of the structure of the insect antenna. So there are many types of antenna. Why we have to understand or why we have to learn about the antenna is because this is the main characteristic for their identification. So not all insects share similar antenna. Okay, they have pectinate, filiform, setaceous, clavate, plumose, lamellate, stylate, and many others. This is one this is some of the example. Okay, here this is the picture together with the owner. Okay, the first one, siapa yang boleh agak? Anyone?
Lumos.
Yes, it's a plumose, but what type of insect is that? Tak boleh agak. Cannot? Tak boleh ha? Okay.
Tak boleh.
Well, I think you are really familiar with this thing. It's just that you don't realize previously. Okay, your mosquito. Okay, mosquito have this kind of antenna. And the second one is actually a moth. Third one here is actually ants. Okay, and then we have grasshopper, and then we have flies here. This one is beetle, this one is firefly, and this one is termites. Okay, this one is fly as well. So there are a lot of insects that have different type of antenna. And because of this, we can use this antenna characteristic as one of their identification features. Okay, so dia takkan sama. You cannot found plumose antenna on ants. You cannot found geniculate antenna on grasshopper. Okay, but when we are talking about beetles, beetles share a lot of beetles depending on their groups, they have a lot of different type of antenna. Okay, like here, firefly is actually beetle. They have what we call it serrate antenna. Okay, this one is different. Okay, lamellate, and there's no other beetle here, but they have what we call it bipectinate, pectinate. There are many beetles that have different kind of antenna. But for grasshopper, usually they have only this filiform antenna. Most of it as a filiform antenna. It's just that maybe shorter, maybe a bit longer. Okay. And for the plumose one here, the fly, not only mosquito have plumose, there are others type of fly that have plumose antenna as well. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so I keep mentioning. So jawab. Remember, you have to type in the chat box. 15 seconds. Okay, I keep repeating this one. Tak tahulah, tak boleh jawab juga kan. Cepat, siapa cepat dia dapat 1, siapa lambat dia dapat 0.5. I already mentioned that we have 15-second quiz in our lecture. It's just that I don't say which lecture we have 15-second quiz. So you have to be alert lah. Okay, siapa yang jawab less than 15 second, jawapan dia dikira. For those yang jawab lambat, your even though it's correct, your answer will not be calculated. Okay, I think past 15 seconds already. Okay, now in the head, we also found what we call it compound eyes. Okay, compound eyes is actually a repeating unit made of ommatidia, which is we call it small receptor. So imagine like now you are hackers, okay? But I'm sure kamu pernah tengok cerita hackers kan? So they stay in the room where a lot of monitor that show different angle. So you imagine compound eyes is actually that situation. And their ommatidia is actually screen yang banyak-banyak komputer tu yang show different angle. Okay, so that's how insects looks through their compound eyes. Okay, so banyak-banyak screen which is omatida visual receptor that can show different angle. Okay, so it's detect the edge and also forming image. And they also have a small or singular or simple eyes, which is ocelli, or in singular we call it ocellus, which is a photoreceptor. Also function like eyes, it's just that it doesn't forming image, but it's actually light detecting organs. Okay, so they have a single lens and with sensory cell to detect movement. Okay, rather than you can see the rather than they can see the image, they only can detect the movement of others, okay, through the ocelli, which is simple eyes. And then some of it also have stemata, okay, especially in aquatic beetles and also caterpillar. So stemata is almost similar like ocelli. It's very simple photoreceptor. Tapi ni maksudnya dia rather than ocelli, you can see at the one pair, or at the one pair or three ocelli. Okay, stemata ni duduk dekat part mata, tapi you can see like macam dot small dot hitam in part of the eyes. So not but remember, not all aquatic beetle have stemata and not all caterpillar have stemata. Okay, stemata ni ada yang ada yang tak ada. But compound eyes, most of it ada. Okay, but ada jugalah for those yang solely have a stemata, they doesn't have compound eyes. Okay, but ocelli, if they have compound eyes, some of it also have ocelli. Usually ocelli ni appear sama ada 2 sepasang ataupun 3. Okay. There are a few special cases in terms of eyes. Okay, for example, the last picture here, the black one, it's actually greenidae. One family in the beetle group, okay, in Coleopterans, they have 2 compound eyes split into 4 half. Maksudnya you can see that it seems like their eyes have 2 pairs. 1 pair above and 2 pairs below. Okay, this greenidae is actually aquatic water beetle that live on the surface of water film. Okay, so they have a vision for underwater and also vision in the air. So 2 part yang atas boleh nampak in the air, another 2 kat bawah boleh nampak dalam air. Okay, so this is the picture. The first one is the picture of flies. Okay, they have one lash of what we call it ocelli yang kat tengah-tengah ni, and yang kamu nampak belang-belang hijau ni is actually compound eyes, and this is the reflection of light. Okay, that's why nampak belang tu, mata dia tak ada belang pun macam tu. But and the second one yang kat tengah ni is actually small wasps or hymenopterans. They have 1 pairs of compound eyes and 3 ocelli. See, you can see yang kat tengah ni, yang small one is actually ocelli. Almost similar like compound eyes, but it's actually detect movement rather than forming image. Okay, yang kat bawah ni, some of the beetles also have 3 ocelli, 1 pair of compound eyes. And this is the aquatic water beetle, where it has stemata. Okay, you can imagine okay, this one is only the reflection sebab tu kamu nampak yang ada separuh ni reflection of the image. But as you can see here, there are a few small dots forming on the head in the what we call it compound area part, but it doesn't have a compound area, but this one is a stemata. Okay, this is how the stemata look like. Yang gambar yang kat bawah ni is actually a reflection of the image. Okay, so jangan confuse lah. Okay, so now mouth part. In the head, there are mouths for feeding. Okay, so mouth part consists of labrum, pair of mandible, maxilla, hypopharynx, and many other parts. Okay, here you can see maxilla is actually almost since how to say it's almost like not tongue. Labrum is a tongue function as tongue, but maxilla ni almost like in human kita tak boleh nak cakap lah, since we have hand untuk masukkan makanan dalam mulut kan, but for certain insect it doesn't have they have legs, but leg doesn't function to hold the prey. Okay, some of it have a leg that function to hold the prey, but in this kind of insects, they have maxilla to hold some part of the food, the one that yang dia nak chew lah. So how they chew? The first thing through using mandible. So ni sebenarnya we call it dia punya gigi lah yang first. Mandible is punya gigi. Okay, so there are different function of different part. So okay. So why we have to understand the mouthpart? Because modification of the mouthpart also show their function in ecosystem. Either dia tu adalah pest yang makan daun, yang chewing, or pest that yang suck-sucking, or maybe also predators. So characteristic of mouthpart is actually show their ecological function. Okay, so here you can see that this is the characteristic mouthpart for sucking. For example, butterfly kan, dia ada what we call it rostrum yang panjang untuk sucking, macam tube, macam straw tapi coil straw. Okay, and then lapping, especially in bees, and lapping also in what we call it in house fly. Okay, kamu nampak lalat rumah yang terbang atas makanan and then dia move around, dia macam lap something atas surface. Okay, so that is characteristic of the lapping. And then there are also chewing part. Chewing especially you can see bila kamu tengok grasshopper makan, or mungkin juga some beetle, okay, or mungkin juga caterpillars. So they have what they call it modification mouthpart for chewing. Okay. And this insect also can be identified based on their projection or position of the head. Okay, some we call it here, the first one is opignathus, mouthpart pointing posteriorly. Okay, anterior ke depan, posterior ke belakang. So imagine dia punya mulut is actually ke belakang. So the example here is hemipterans. Okay, kalau kamu tak sedar apa benda gambar ni, for those yang pernah tengok cicadas, okay, or other hemipterans, cicadas, you can see here, kalau gambar kat bawah ni, actually the mouthpart is the one, the smaller one here. It's we call it as a rostrum. So this rostrum is actually pointing at the posterior end, ke belakang, pointing ke belakang badan of the insects rather than ke depan. So they have opistognathus mouthpart specialized for sucking. Maksudnya menghisap bendalih tumbuhan. And then we have hypognathus, okay, the one that pointing ventrally ke bawah. Okay, especially the one yang feed on leaf, which is pest, almost pest. For example, is ni semua orang kenal lah, I think boleh agak kot apa ni. It's a grasshopper. Okay, so the grasshopper have a hypognathus mouthpart and pointing ventrally. They feed on leaf below the punya body surface. Okay, and another group which is hypognathus, where the mouthpart is pointed anteriorly, ke hadapan. Most of the predators, most of the beetles, okay, they have mouthpart that pointing anteriorly. But not all. Some of it have quite not pointing opistognathus, not pointing posteriorly, but it's still a prognathus. It's just that you cannot see clearly dia punya mandible like this one. Sebab ada group like Vivo, which is also beetle, they have rostrum instead of mouth part yang macam saya tunjuk ni. Okay. Now we go to the second part, which is thorax. So thorax can be divided into three parts, which is prothorax, mesothorax, and metathorax. All these three parts of thorax have one pairs of legs. So you have four legs, middle legs, and hind legs. Okay, but here, if you can see clearly, okay, this is the what we call it, a segmentation of the legs. Okay, we have coxal, trochanter, femur, tibia, and tarsus. Okay, and at the end of tarsus, they have claw untuk mencengkam. Okay, and some of insects have tympanums on hind leg, kaki belakang. Remember I said they have three pairs of leg tadi, four legs, middle legs, and hind legs. So some of insect in hind leg, they have hearing organ. Okay, as you can see at the head tadi, there are no part that we consider as ear. Tak ada telinga kan. So how this insect hear the sound is through the organ called tympanum. So tympanum not only can be found in hind tibia of certain insects, some of it have tympanum in abdomen. Later on kita akan tengok. But I just mentioned, I think I don't have the picture for tympanum in abdomen. But anyway, you have to remember that they have hearing organ called tympanum, not ear. Okay, so it doesn't, so we don't have, we don't see any ear on the head. So jangan kata dekat kepala ada telinga. So no, insect doesn't have ear. They have tympanum as a hearing organ, but location of tympanums is different according to different species. Okay, and there are also modification of legs for running or crawling, jumping, digging, swimming, capturing prey, and also pollen basket. Okay, so this is the picture how the legs look like for every modification of legs. So for cursorial here, you can see almost in legs, the one that are crawling, okay, selalunya kaki yang paling senang nak tengok is on the what we call it, not grasshopper, in cockroaches. Okay, cockroaches, selalu kamu tengok dia crawl under the crevice, behind the chairs, behind the table and so on. So they have legs for, we call it for running or crawling, namely cursorial. Okay, cursorial leg for running or crawling. And then they have and another insect has saltatorial legs, which is for jumping. You can see this type of leg on grasshopper. Okay, kaki belakang grasshopper, which is function for jumping. So kalau kamu tengok, kaki dia memang jenis macam ni, saltatorial. And then we have fossorial for digging. This is not very common, but you can see clearly this type of fossorial leg on beetle. Sorry, there's another person coming in. On beetle, which is modify their leg for digging in the soil. Okay, so that's how the legs look like. And we also have mole cricket, some sort of cricket that live on the soil. The front leg also show obvious fossorial legs for digging. And we have swimming legs, which is natatorial. You can see this type of legs, especially in a water beetle, the one that's live in the water. The hind leg, four legs, sometimes ada yang modification on four legs, but usually the modification you can see clearly on hind leg for swimming. Some of it have long hairs, okay, bulu-bulu halus dekat part of the legs to help them swim faster. Okay, and then there are also legs for capturing prey. We call it raptorial. Okay, raptorial ni kaki ni the most common one you can see on mantis. Okay, mantis, praying mantis. Nama Melayu mentadak. I think yes, mentadak kot. Raptorial. So kaki hadapan, which is 4 legs, modified into raptorial characteristic to capture the prey. Okay, so you can see yang this insect ataupun praying mantis ni pegang their own prey waktu nak makan. So they have hand or they have legs for capturing prey. And then for honeybee, okay, you can see that they are roaming on the flowers and then collecting pollen. So they have characteristic like a pollen, we call it a pollen basket. It's actually modification part for at the tibia or tarsus or first tarsus part, usually enlargement at tibia part. So it's not actually a basket, dia bukan bakul, it's just the enlargement of surface. So maksudnya dia membesar, part tibia tu dia membesar, and then this bee, okay, they collect pollen and then tampal dekat dia punya tibia to carry into their nest. So it's not actually a basket, it's just got the name pollen basket sebabnya they carry that pollen at the part or at the tibia part of the legs. Sebabnya tibia ni membesar, kaki lain tu part lain which is like tarsus, very small, mungkin femurs a bit larger, some of it smaller, but usually tibia part is actually enlarged to give the function as a pollen basket. Okay, this is the picture. You can see clearly this one is for crawling, this one for jumping, digging, swimming. Okay, this one is for capturing prey, and this is the pollen basket. Okay, in the thorax, there are always 2 pairs of wings. Okay, we call it forewings and hind wing. Okay, but remember, 4 wings situation is not similar as 4 legs. Okay, even pun kita bagi nama 4, it's actually located on mesothorax. So remember, we have prothorax, mesothorax and metathorax. Ada 3 part of thorax tadi. So the 4 wing sayap hadapan is actually on mesothorax rather than prothorax. But kaki hadapan is on prothorax. Maksudnya duduk di segmen pertama thorax. Okay, so they have 2 pairs of wing, usually 2 pairs of wing. One group have 1 pairs of wing. For example, Dipterans. Okay, for those yang primitive insect, they doesn't have a wing at all, but often 2 pairs of wing. Okay, the one yang you see on grasshopper, you see on dragonfly, on beetles, but they have different characteristic. Okay, for example, the first one, picture of grasshopper. Okay, they have 4 wing, which is sclerotized. We call it as a tegmina, but the hind wing is membranous. Okay, 4 wing sclerotized, hind wing membranous. But for dragonfly, they both have, fore and hind wing is actually membranous. Okay, but for the beetles, okay, they have hardened forewing. We call it elytra rather than membranous. It's very hardened. Yeah, so maksudnya dia mengeras almost like other part of chitin, other part of the body. Maksudnya macam prothorax kan, you see the punya exoskeleton is chitin. So the elytra is almost feel like that. It's very hardened. Okay, so it's different like sclerotized and hardened. Dia maksud berbeza. Yang ni even though it's sclerotized, it's not very hard. But for elytra yang appear only in beetles have a forewing which is hardened, and hindwing which is folded below, okay, folded below the elytra is membranous part. Okay, so it has different characteristic lah. Kalau kamu nampak insect that have what we call it elytra, and the hindwing is actually not obvious since it's folded under the elytra, this is the group of beetle. Okay, so that is the wing. And like I said, there are always exceptions. Okay, here we have two groups, Diptera and Strepsiptera. Okay, Strepsiptera ni not very common, but I still mention to you lah, yang ni payah nak nampak because it's very small. It's hyperparasitoid, which is parasitoid to other parasitoid. So we call it hyperparasitoid. It's very, very tiny. And for dipterans, this is the common group. Okay, you have mosquito, you have housefly. So that one is from dipterans. Okay, they have only one pair of wing, 4 wings. Okay, and the hind wing is actually modified into what we call it balancing organ called halteal. Okay, so they have 2 pairs still part of the wing. So forewing is the what we call it membranous part, okay, and the hind wing now it's become the balancing organ called halteal. No longer wing, it's a halteal for balancing. Okay, this is the picture of one group of fly, Tipulidae. Okay, and for Strepsiptera, the forewing is actually modified into organ for balancing, but we call it only as a halteal-like. You have to put it halteal-like. Okay, since it doesn't have a common name for this part. Cumanya function dia sama as a balancing organ, but only in forewing area. Okay, hind wing still they have hind wing which is membranous. Okay, here I show you the different venation of the wing. You don't have to remember what is the CM coastal cell whatsoever here. It's not very important. It's just that you have to understand that different shape of wing also represent the different group of insects. Okay. So now we go to the abdominal part. Okay. Here, abdomen is actually located behind the thorax. Okay, behind the metathorax. Okay, last is metathorax. Location of abdomen is behind the metathorax. So here we can some of the insects have tympanums. Like I said, it doesn't have an ear. So here we call it eardrum. Okay, wait. Sorry, I have gas. Boleh. But, no. I have gas. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, so they have tympanum, which is function as ear, not ear, but function as hearing organ. So sama function macam telinga. And here I put it sometimes located on hind legs. Tadi kan kita dah tengok. But most of the insects, not all, but most, is located on the abdomen. Okay, and you can see here also, okay, in the abdomen there are different segments. Okay, and number of different segment ni 1, 2 sampai ada yang 10, it's more than 10 pun ada, 11, it's less than 10 pun ada. So it show different group of insects. So like beetles and fly, they have only 6 to 7 segments. Okay, you can see one number 1 to 7. Okay, this part is have only on beetle. Meanwhile, for dragonfly, it's always have 10 segment. And for other insect like silverfish and mayfly, they have more than 10, which is about 11 segment. Okay, so there are different numbers of segment. And in the segment also there are some of abdominal structure that presents in some insects. For example, we call it pincer, appear in Dermaptera like a faucet, tapi ada at the end of the abdomen, and they have some of it like mayfly, we call it cauda filament. Okay, there are structure at the end of the abdomen, cauda filament, and aphid they have conical, and for Lepidopterans, you can see the abdominal prolegs atau kaki palsu. Okay, remember the real legs is always on the thorax. So if you found Lepidopterans, contohnya ulat bulu larat, okay, yang you see, okay, dia seolah-olah nampak macam dekat abdomen, still have the legs. That legs is actually a prolegs. Okay, prolegs ataupun kita kata kaki palsu, abdominal prolegs for Lepidopterans and also some of the Hymenopteran larvae. And for Hymenopterans, especially bee, okay, bee sting wasps kan, yang penyengat tu, they have sting. Sting maksudnya yang function to transmit venom kan, hasil venom and then inject dekat pemangsa like bee lah for example. Okay, the sting is located on the abdomen. And for the aquatic insects, they have abdominal gill, function to as a gill to absorb or to to get oxygen in the water. Okay, this is the picture. Okay, the first one, the prolegs. Okay, here this is the part of abdomen. Okay, remember the legs, the real legs, which is thoracic leg, is in the part of the thorax. You have head, thorax, and abdomen. Okay, so this is the part abdominal. We call it abdominal proleg. And second picture below is actually the Dermapterans, where I said the end of abdomen, they have what we call it structure like pincer. Okay, this is the pincer-like structure in Dermapterans. And stinger kat bawah ni nampak macam jarum ni kan, right? This is stinger in bee and other wasps. And conical on the body or on the abdomen of aphid. Okay, this function as a place to secrete the how to say to secrete honeydew. Okay, since this insect feed on plant sap, so there's a lot of moisture kan, maksudnya dia sedup part of moisture, so they have to secrete or excrete this liquid in term of honey, macam form of honey, okay, from these two conical shape. Okay, conical part ni dia akan rembeskan cecair like honey dari dua bahagian part in the abdomen. Okay, this is not the anus, the one that excrete waste. Cumanya dia buang almost like bahan buangan, tapi part macam air yang contain sugary compound. Okay, and this is a fecula for primitive insects like columbolan. Kat belakang ni, as you can see, this is a fecula. We call it a jumping organ. Help this animal or this insect to jump from one place to one place. Okay, maksudnya if disturbed, dia boleh jump around 10 cm in length. Okay, and here is the picture of we call it a gill, okay, abdominal gill on mayfly larvae. This is mayfly larvae, the one that live in the water. So they have here, kalau kamu tengok macam bulu-bulu, right? This is the gill, and this is the the abdominal filament in Thysanoptera or silverfish. Okay. So there is another quiz. Okay, you have only 15 seconds. Okay. Okay, so before we go to internal features, so let's rest for 15 minutes. Cuba hadamkan apa yang you can hadam. Okay, and then you can ask question during this time. So is there any question? Boleh tanya sekarang, nak tanya? Anything that you want to ask related to insects? Tak semestinya related to the one yang kita tengok tadi. You can ask anything. No question?
Doktor,
Okay.
yang untuk part mata tadi kan ada compound ocelli dengan stemata tu kan. Stemata tu yang macam mana dah? Saya tak perasan tadi.
Okay, stemata tu dia almost similar like ocelli. It's actually how to say the function is not dia bukan macam compound eyes as well. Okay, so it's more like a simple eyes. Okay, as you can see, sekejap saya back balik tadi. Okay, so it's almost like ocelli. Okay, it's a photoreceptor. So rather than a compound eyes, which is yang dia nampak visual, macam yang saya kata kamu nampak seolah-olah macam ada screen, but different screen show different angle. Yang tu adalah omatida in the compound eyes. But stemata is almost similar like ocelli, but it's quite how to say, it's quite different. But kalau kamu kata more like a function, okay, function in dia adalah more like ocelli punya part, detecting light, detecting movement, detecting the light. Maksudnya for kira dia macam okay, detect light, based on the light changes tu dia boleh detect movement lah. Okay, so dia bukan function like macam you see picture clearly. The one yang nampak betul-betul clear tu adalah what we call it a visual receptor. This one is movement receptor. Okay, they detect movement based on light changing in light. Okay, so stemata is almost like ocelli. It's just different lah. Macam mana nak kata? Function dia almost similar. It's just how to say? It's singular stemma macam Well, anyway, you have to remember that almost similar like ocelli. Okay, I cannot, sebab dia ada term stemata, they have what we call it stemma, so they have a different interpretation. Dia ada, maksudnya ada certain words yang it may complicated your understanding, but here what you have to understand is just that stemata ni almost like ocelli. It's just ocelli ni dia seolah-olah complete light detecting organ. Okay, stemata ni almost mungkin it's more like macam halfway, but kamu boleh nampak stemata ni seolah-olah macam dot. Here the picture. Kalau kamu tengok the bitter larvae tadi, so tu adalah what we call it stemata. They have word like stemma. It's a optic untuk how to say? Bila sebut optik maksudnya mata kan, but in a sense it just a light detecting organ as well. Okay, so boleh terima tak maksudnya? macam mana nak kata? It's a simple eyes as well, like ocelli pun kita panggil a simple eyes. Cumanya they have a different term since they have different some sort of complicated characteristic on the eyes jugalah, maksud in term of receptor yang ada dekat both eyes, ocelli as well as stemata.
Boleh.
But dua-dua ni adalah simple eyes. Bila kita cakap simple eyes, they have stemata and ocelli. Cumanya ocelli ni usually appear insect yang even pun they have compound eyes, they have ocelli as well. But stemata only certain group yang ada stemata. Like caterpillar tadi, like beetle larvae. So macam gambar ni adalah beetle larvae. But bila kita cakap beetle larvae adalah anak dia tau. So the mother, which is beetle adult tu, no longer have stemata. Stemata, they have what we call it compound eyes dah. So you have to understand that the stemata is juga dia tak kekal. Okay, so maksudnya if the larvae ada stemata, the adult probably have compound eyes. Okay, ni adalah Dyticid larvae kot, I think. Dyticidae, but the mother, the adult, have a compound eyes. Okay, tapi during larvae dia ada this type of eyes. But it's just a singular stemma or simple eyes as well. Okay, so any question?
Okay, Doktor.
Okay, soalan lain? Tak ada dah? I hope you can remember all these things. Ada part yang you don't have to remember, yang more complicated macam wing, venation ni mungkin tak perlu ingat, but characteristic like segmentation on leg, segmentation on antenna, segmentation a certain part of mouth part, yang tu kamu kena ingat lah. Okay, so now we go to internal features. Okay, so internal features meaning that semua part yang dalaman, which is include circulatory organ, respiratory organ, nervous system, digestive and reproductive. Okay, so this first picture show all the system, all the features according to their own color. Okay, nampak macam berserabut, right? Okay, but anyway, kita akan tengok satu-satu. Okay, so for circulatory system, which is blood system, kalau dalam human lah kan, we call it blood system. It's just that in insect we call it open circulatory system because blood and also other fluid like lymph fluid are mixed together. So kalau kita ada lymph blood asing tau, and then our blood its function to carry oxygen. Okay, but here in insects, they have different type of system. Okay, we call it open circulatory system, where all the liquid in the body, tak kisahlah liquid to function as what, okay, but all this type of liquid is actually mixed together, called blood liquid. In insect we call hemolymph. Okay, so dia tak ada nama hemoglobin. No, this is hemolymph. Dia bercampur sekali dah dalam all the type of fluid tu. 5 ada blood, common blood kan pun ada, so we call hemolymph. Okay, so this hemolymph is actually filled throughout the body in empty space. Macam kita ada blood vessel. They have some part yang macam vessel, but most of other part in the insect body is actually empty space. Maksudnya dia macam bercampur aduk, dia ruangan terbuka. Empty space bukan maksud kosong, they have their own organ as well dalam body kan. Cumanya sekarang you imagine that we have blood vessel but they don't have blood vessel. So semuanya bergabung, ada part yang a bit like vessel, but others tu semuanya circulate around the body. So all the internal organs is actually bathed in the hemolymph. So semuanya duduk dalam this kind of liquid. And this space pula, open space tadi, we call it as a hemocell. Okay, this is the picture. So you imagine they have here a part yang ada arrow-arrow ni is actually aorta. Okay, so ada part yang di dalam what we call vessel kan, macam saya kata tadi, but other part dia actually adalah terbuka di seluruh bahagian badan insect ni. Okay, so dia punya sistem is semualah yang kamu nampak ada yang arrow ni. Okay, so since I said kita tak akan pergi detail internal kan. And they have quite respiratory system as well. Okay, tadi kita kata in human, kita ada part yang kita punya blood is actually mixed with is actually carry oxygen. And but this system is totally different since they have circulatory system and respiratory system obviously separated. Okay, so insect have what we call it spiracle or tiny hole along the side of its body to a trachea or and then to assac. So maksudnya dia absorb oxygen or buang carbon dioxide, okay, from the body through this what we call it spiracle, abdominal spiracle yang nampak bulat-bulat kat sini kan. Okay, this is actually part area where it's contact with environment. Okay, maksudnya ruangan terbuka yang menghubungkan antara body, insect body, inside the insect body to the environment. So kalau kita kata dalam case human, ni part sama ada mulut atau hidung lah, but mulut kita boleh juga absorb sedut oxygen, right? But in their case, more like macam hidung, okay, absorb ataupun kita kata sedut oxygen through the abdominal spiracle, and then later on juga akan rembeskan atau buang carbon dioxide through abdominal spiracle. So they have from the abdominal spiracle and then absorb the air through the trachea. So here you can see the trachea, and then from trachea to the assac. Assac is yang ruangan besar ni. Sikit kalau kamu tengok lah dekat dia punya label ni. Okay, from spiracle to trachea to assac. Okay, that one is dia punya. Okay, that, and remember all these trachea and assacs is actually bathed in hemolymph tadi. And remember this hemolymph, so dia duduk dalam all this kind of liquid lah. Okay, and then they have nervous system, okay, sistem saraf, where it's just a content of brain, and then 2 nerve cord, and then ganglion, which is nerve cell. Okay, so this is the kalau kamu tengok kalau kita keluarkan from the body, this is the part brain, nerve, 2 nerve cord, and then ganglion. Okay, and the ganglia usually can work without the brain. So you can see here, okay, they have a thoracic ganglia. They have many type of other ganglia. They have hypocerebral ganglion near the brain. Okay, this is the part of the brain. Okay, so they have a ganglia is like a small brain, okay, throughout the body. But the true brain is actually on the head lah kan. So this because of this ganglion or the ganglia can work without the brain. Okay, so kalau kamu tengok certain insect, katalah kamu cut dia punya kepala, the legs still move, kadang body pun still move, tapi kepala dah tak ada. Okay, because this ganglia also can act as a brain, a small brain untuk control movement ataupun kita kata saraf tu ada yang located to kaki kan, even pun without kepala. But remember, it's just only for a certain period of time. Okay, even maksudnya macam how to say, dia boleh bergerak or movement or to control their movement without brain on the head kerana dia ada this type of ganglia. Ganglia yang located throughout the body. Ada dekat thorax which is control the movement of leg, control the movement of wing and so on. So, cumanya only in certain period of time. The main part or main nervous system still brain that located in the on the head as well lah. Okay, cumanya since they have this group of ganglia, they allow movement kira before fully total death. Maksudnya even pun kita cut dah kepala, kita kata okay dia dah mati dah, cumanya it still can move around because of this function of thoracic ganglia. Macam kalau human you cut head, okay then die, habis cerita, right? But this insect, there are certain period of time yang allow them to control their movement of body through this kind of thoracic ganglia or abdominal ganglia. Okay, and then they have a digestive system, sistem pengharaman. It's a long tube that extend from mouth to the anus, maksudnya dari mulut ke anus untuk tempat buangan. And the tube have 3 different, or we can separate into 3 different part or different or main division, which is foregut, midgut and hindgut. So foregut is the area where insects have the main part in foregut is actually crops, where tempat dia simpan makanan sebelum diproses. Okay, and then the second part is actually a midgut, which is contain a stomach. Okay, so you can imagine bila sebut stomach, bahagian perut, where the activity or absorption of nutrient is happen there. Okay, and then they have a hindgut, which is part intestine. Okay, so where any compound, any thing that from the food yang tak nak lagi kan, yang tak nak atau untuk dibuang, will go through this part of hindgut. Okay, so here usually in crop, dari makanan yang besar tu dia akan melalui what we call it gizzard, tempat process the food to become a smaller particle. So dia simpan waktu dia makan, maybe in a bit quite how to say large particle, okay, and then deposited ataupun disimpan dekat crop, part foregut, and then later on bila untuk diproses, it will move through the gizzard, tempat pemprosesan where they cut the particle into smaller particle to be absorbed in mid-gut, and then for those yang absorb lah, for those yang tak nak akan dirembeskan atau dibuang and go through the intestine, and then at the end excreted through anus. Okay, so this is the digestive system. And then now we go to reproductive system. Okay. For reproductive system, there are different reproductive system in male and female. Okay, there are certain parts that you have to understand. For male, for example, they have two testes, okay, one pairs of testes, and then some of it has what we call it accessory gland, and then ejaculatory ducts, esophagus. But for female, it's quite how to say complicated, okay, because they have certain part that produce ovary or produce eggs, and then they have here what we call it a spermatheca. It's not that they produce a sperm, but it just that this is the area where they can collect the sperm when during the mating process, and then keep the sperm until they want to use it. Maksudnya how to say the fertilization sometimes not occur on the same day, on the same time, or on during activity of mating process. So they mate. You imagine like this. They mate, and female have what we call it spermatheca, where they can simpan, okay, keep the sperm there, maybe for a few, I don't know, depending on the species. It can be a few days, okay. It can be a few, how to say, a few time of development. Maksudnya dia mate sekali je, mungkin mate sekali, but keep sperm there for a longer time, and they can produce different batch of kids or youngster or how to say offspring using sperm that deposited here. Maksudnya katalah some sperm dia akan fertilize with eggs yang the first batch of eggs. Maybe after they lay eggs tadi, kan, anak dah lahir yang the first batch, and sperm yang simpan tadi digunakan lagi, kalau tak habis digunakan lagi untuk fertilize a new batch of eggs. So that's how spermatheca works, but it depends on the species of insect jugalah. Okay, sama ada berapa lama dia boleh simpan and so on. And then they also have, for female also have accessory gland, which function macam to secrete certain type of protective part, macam apa, sarung kulit atau sarung telur dalam not sarung telur, how to say, or part yang macam sarung kat luar, dalam tu ada banyak-banyak telur. Okay, so tu also produced through the accessory gland. Okay, this is the picture of the eggs for mantis, as well as this one is the cockroaches. Okay, as you can see here, okay, they produce this sarung, okay, kat luar ni, to cover the eggs. Inside is actually not just one eggs, but there are sometimes 100 or more, or maybe less than 100 of eggs clumped together. Okay, so bila satu telur ni menetas, bukan satu telur, satu sarung yang produced by spermatheca, sarung telur ni menetas, so there are a lot of anak yang akan keluar. As you can see here, yang ni mungkin nampak clearly kan, dia punya partition at the on the eggshell ni, kamu boleh nampak ni satu part, satu. So dia ada around 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Around 9 to 10 anak kat dalam ni. 9 to 10 offspring inside. 9 to 10 eggs which is deposited together jadi satu structure for development. Okay, now so this insect, it can go through what we call it sexual reproduction as well as asexual reproduction. So for sexual reproduction, there are a few types. First, we have oviparity. Second, ovoviviparity. And third is viviparity. So oviparity, maksudnya kat sini, this insect produce eggs, fertilize, and oviposit by the female. So dia seolah-olah macam okay, produce eggs inside the body, and then female produce eggs, kan kita panggil ovum lah, eggs tu is ovum first, and then fertilize meaning that mix of male and female female eggs kan, sperm and ovum, okay, mixed together, and then fertilize, and then deposited as eggs sebagai telur yang kamu panggil okay, telur serangga. Dia dah fertilize dah, tapi telur tu deposited as eggs, telur, dah still bentuk telur of female. So tu yang kita panggil oviparity. Okay, imagine here macam ayam lah. Okay, even pun ayam bukan insect, but I think you can imagine better. Okay, so ayam yang betina akan produce ovum, and then male akan sperm. Okay, and then they mate, fertilize, okay, and then ayam tu akan keluarkan telur ayam, right? So telur ayam tu, what I mean here is oviposit by female in form of telur. Still kita panggil telur, cumanya in the sense tadi telur yang tak disenyawa, now sekarang telur dah disenyawa. So tu oviparity. And most of insects show this kind of reproductive sexual reproductive system, okay? And then for ovoviviparity, now it's kind of a different story, okay? They produce eggs, meaning unfertilized egg, and then mate, fertilize the eggs. But the eggs that fertilized tadi, it was retained in the body of female until it hatch inside. So you can imagine sekarang telur fertilized eggs is actually inside the female body, and then sampai masa dia akan hatch. Kira hatch, menetas dalam badan, and then female will then giving birth. Maksudnya telur tu dah menetas, so menetas dalam badan, and now female tu keluarkan anak yang menetas tadi tu in form of larvae or nymph by to environment. Maksudnya dia keluarkan bukan lagi bentuk telur, but then in form of larvae or nymph, because the fertilized eggs already hatched inside the female of in the body of the female. So tu we call it ovoviviparity. Okay, and there are also part called viviparity. Okay, viviparity is just that they have eggs, and then eggs, unfertilized eggs, and then eggs and then fertilized, but rather than deposited as eggs at the deposited outside or inside the female body, it's just that it's developed into different individual. Maksudnya viviparity ni, you can imagine that it's happen like a giving birth, macam human. Okay, so asalnya kita ada ovum, sperm, and then fertilize. Rather than producing eggs macam ayam, it's actually developed individual to develop inside the body. Okay, and then we given birth to the baby, right? So samalah cerita kat dalam insect ni, viviparity. For example, shown by aphid. Okay, so it's given birth to another individual similar as a mother. Okay, and then they also, some of the insect also, especially the one that smaller insect that feed on plant sap or sap-sucking insect, they appear to show a characteristic like asexual reproduction. Asexual meaning that it can produce the offspring without having involvement of male. Okay, maksudnya dia tak ada proses mating, tak ada fertilization, no. Okay, the mother can clone itself through what we call it parthenogenesis. Okay, mostly shown by insect pests yang sap-sucking, yang like aphid, like scale insect, mealybug. So they have what we call it parthenogenesis, cloning themselves. Even pun kita cakap cloning, it's not actually real cloning, sebab bila term cloning maksudnya anak dengan ibu sama. No. Parthenogenesis in insect can be different because even pun mother tu adalah female, it can produce male. Maksudnya it can produce offspring which is male. Okay, and then later on, mother and then their offspring which is male tadi can mate together, or mungkin anak dia yang dia produce ada female dan male, mate together and produce a new offspring. So that's how parthenogenesis happen. It's actually occur when the environmental condition is not very suitable for the growth. Maksudnya insect tu terpaksa having what we call it reproduction for survival. Okay, to extend their population. Sedangkan environment which is not suitable to allow sexual reproduction. Tapi dia still boleh produce the number of offspring through parthenogenesis. Okay, this is the picture. Okay, the first one, you can see the fly lay eggs. This is what we call it eggs, fertilized eggs. Okay, through to the environment, and then later these eggs will hatch into the larvae. And then here is the picture of aphid, okay, producing the offspring. It can either through viviparity, okay, which is anak dia develop inside and then giving birth kan to the offspring that similar characteristic of like a mother, or it can also go through parthenogenesis, which is producing the new offspring without having without having male or without having fertilization. And this is the picture also eggs producing by water beetle. Sorry, not water beetle, water bugs. Okay, this is water bug, the largest water bug. Okay, if you see somehow katalah mungkin ada peluang jumpa this kind of insects, don't get confused. The one that carry the eggs is actually a male rather than female. Okay, so female lay eggs on the body of the male. So the male akan carry these eggs until it's hatched. Okay, ni adalah picture of male carrying the eggs on their body, and this is the parthenogenesis shown by certain insect. In this picture is actually how to say land cockroaches ataupun soil cockroaches. Okay, it's produce offspring. This is mostly like not a. I don't think this one is parthenogenesis. Sorry, this one is actually ovoviviparity. Okay, producing eggs and hatch inside the body, and then later on will give them birth as a another offspring. Okay, another quiz. Okay, so now we go to insect development and growth, the last part. Okay, tadi kita kata they have exoskeleton which is skeleton yang dekat luar. So because of exoskeleton, this is a hardened part kan. So it actually cannot expand the growth. So because of that, this insect have to go through a multiple shedding of the exoskeleton. Like I said previously, dia kena tukar kulit or salin kulit, which is we call it as a molting. Okay, and this molting process, yang bertukar kulit ni, we also call it as a ecdysis. So molting can appear at the this one is the picture from pupae or to adult, pupae to adult. But it can this process or shedding exoskeleton can appear from larvae to larvae, from first larval stage to next larval stage as well. Okay, so it doesn't matter. It's just that you have to understand that molting process is actually allow this insect to expand their growth. Okay, since exoskeleton is very hardened, okay, how to expand the growth? So it has to shed, buang kulit lama and then keluarkan a new kulit baru, which is awalnya, like I said previously, it's very soft and then it will go through the hardening process where we call it as a sclerotization. Okay, so this, the whole process of molting, we can call it as a ecdysis. Okay, so this ecdysis is actually important in metamorphosis of the insects. I sure that as a biological student, you already learned that there are complete and incomplete metamorphosis in insects. Where for complete metamorphosis, I think you should understand that they have 4 stages, okay, main stages: larvae, pupa, adult, and eggs. Okay, so this is the stages, the complete metamorphosis. But remember, for the larvae, the small larvae, to expand their body into the large larvae, they have to go through the ecdysis process as well. Okay, so dari first larvae and then second larvae and then move to third larvae, mungkin fourth larvae, fifth larvae, depending on the species, how many times they are molting or ecdysis to become a pupae. And then usually from last stage of larvae to pupae, it doesn't molt. It's just that having a process that dia macam bertukar rupa. Okay, dia tak salin kulit during this process, cumanya dia bertukar rupa, mungkin ada certain part yang development part yang involved, so jadi pupae, and then from pupae it will emerge as adult. Okay, so this is the complete metamorphosis. For the incomplete metamorphosis, okay, they have what we call it only 3 stages, where we have adults, okay, here eggs and nymph, and this nymph, from the small nymph to the large nymph, okay, you will go through a multiple process of ecdysis. I mean multiple changes or molting process. Dari kecil sampai besar. It's just that for the incomplete metamorphosis, they have what we call it kids or nymphs yang almost similar like adult. It's just almost similar. There are certain part yang a bit different lah, macam wings for example, waktu yang the first nymph you won't see any wing, and then later on the wing start develop, and maybe the last stage or second last stage of the nymph you can see the small wing develop, and then later on become the adult, which is a fully complete wing and other parts. Okay, so this is the incomplete metamorphosis. And there are similar group, like I said previously, that you might confuse with. Okay, there are similar group in the arthropod group, still in the arthropod. Okay, it's a phylum Arthropoda. There are a few classes like Arachnida, yang sebelum saya bagi tahu. The common example is spider, but here we also have a scorpion, and we also covered later on in our class ticks or mite. Okay, here this shotik is actually in group of mite acari. So we will see later on in our lecture about mite. So this mite is actually in the class of arachnid. Okay, so as you can see here, they have 4 pairs of legs. Okay, but for the scorpion, don't get confused. Okay, the first 4 yang kamu nampak ni, macam tangan kan, penyepit, is not actually from the leg. It's actually from the mouth part. It's a chelicerae. Okay, the one that hold the food atau hold the prey. So it's actually from the mouth part punya area lah, chelicerae. So they still have 4 segmented leg. Okay, ni kaki. So yang penyepit tu sebenarnya bukan kaki. Okay. And then we have also class Diplopoda, okay, where the group of arthropod that have many legs. Okay, this is how to say a millipede. Okay, Diplopoda is a millipede. We have different group of millipede. This is flat back, pale millipede, and cylinder, which is the most common. Okay, flat back ni also common. You can see around your mother punya plant pots. But pale millipede is quite rare. Okay, but these two group you can find easily around your mother punya plant pot. Okay, so this animal or this arthropod, they have diplopoda, meaning diplopoda is actually refer to the leg. Deep tu maksudnya they have 2 pairs of leg. So you can imagine one segment. Okay, ni kamu nampak segment kan, partition is actually on the body. Okay, now this group, it doesn't have part where we call it head, thorax and abdomen. Don't get confused. Okay, head, thorax and abdomen tadi dekat inside. Now this group of arthropod doesn't have separation head, thorax and abdomen. So as you can see here, the legs is throughout the body. Okay, so dia ada kepala, but throughout ni adalah ada kaki kan. Okay, so setiap segmen bahagian badan ni, they have 2 pairs of legs. So satu segmen ada 4 kaki, which is 2 pasang. So katalah kalau dia ada 10 segmen, okay, kamu kena darab 4 lah, ada berapa banyak kaki yang ada dekat 10 segmen. Okay, so tu adalah Diplopoda. And now we have group of Chilopoda, which is centipede. Okay, tadi millipede, now centipede atau kita panggil lipat. The most common one is this one lah, Scolopendrian group, which is keluarga lipat. Okay, this group Chilopoda, okay, is actually have segmented legs, almost like other arthropod. Okay, it's just that one segment have only one pair of leg. Okay, satu segmen ni hanya ada sepasang kaki. Tadi Diplopoda satu segmen ada 2 pasang kaki, which is 4 kaki. This one only have 2 kaki because buat sepasang only. But of course it's depend on the species jugalah, berapa banyak dia ada kaki. Okay, and then some of the group, okay, most of the Chilopoda, there is a how to say modification at mouth part where they have to macam ada part enlargement of almost like enlargement of mandible to grab to grab, how to say, the prey. Okay, but not all groups in this Chilopoda group produce venom that's harm human. Okay, they have characteristic yang produce venom. It's just that certain species use the venom only for their small prey. Macam geophilic ni, it's very small. Okay, it's almost harmless to human. But unlike Scolopendrid yang common lipan, okay, the poison excrete at the area of mouth part or in fang, here dalam mulut dia ada fang tu kan. Okay, so usually it's a harm for human. Okay, but yang the smaller one ni usually it's more like harmless. And then we have all the isopoda, which is from class Malacostraca, or it's a different group as well. Almost look like an insect, but like I said tadi, dia tak ada different partition head, thorax and abdomen, and they have a lot of eggs. Okay, so isopoda usually refers to legs, also legs. It's just that legs of all these segments are almost similar shape and similar in size. Okay, but almost lah, not all. Okay, so that's how they got their name iso. Iso meaning similar. Okay, poda is leg. So refers to kaki ni adalah almost similar in size and shape. And then we have phylum Annelid. Okay, this is totally different phylum. Tadi arthropod, now Annelid. Is about ringworm or segmented worm, including the earthworm. Okay, so ni the earthworm. It is not an insect juga lah ya. But in common terms, some of us still call it as a bugs. Cumanya dia bukan scientific term. Bugs refers to others. Okay, so that's all for group that similar as insect, similar, almost similar. Cumanya you might get confused with that. It's just that it's totally from different phylum and different class. Okay, is there any question? Ada soalan? Tak ada?
Tak ada.
Okay, okay, now okay, so that's all about the internal and external features of insect, and also other groups of arthropod and non-arthropod that almost similar, or you might get confused with insects. Okay, so you have to understand that these insects, due to their morphological features, it's actually show different group of or it show different function in ecosystem. So that's why we have to understand or to know at least some basics on their characteristic or morphological characteristic. Okay. So so if there is no question, then let's end our session, okay, with tasbih, kafarah and surah Al-As. But before that, I want to mention that today we're not going to have our lab, since you just started to learn about insects. So our new lab, our first lab about insects is actually on next week, okay. So remember, minggu depan kita ada lab about insects, and then later on, maybe on minggu depan is week 9, right? So maybe on week 11, we will have another lab, last lab for this course. Okay, so next week.